I'm Danielle Leitch. In this video series, Beyond the Click, presented by More Visibility, I am speaking with marketing leaders from all industries about how they are navigating the shift in online discovery channels and consumer behavior, especially given the influence of artificial intelligence and what all of this means for the future of marketing. Today, I'm excited to be joined by longtime marketer and friend Mary Rodgers, who also happens to be a multi-company client of More Visibilities. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Danielle. How are you?
Great, great. Thanks. Why don't you go ahead and share a little bit about your background with everyone, please?
So, I've spent my entire career in marketing. My focus has been with consumer and durable goods. So, think things like kitchen appliances, commercial appliances, everything from the kitchen to home environment to outdoor living. I have a passion for cooking and travel. And I would say that one of the things about me that's interesting is that I look at marketing from the through the lens of business. So everything I do in marketing ties back to the impact it has on the business. So it's not about just campaigns, it's about how we are driving revenue for the company.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know we've worked together and collaborated both on the D2C side as well as on the B2B side. So you've got a great perspective that the audience here can hear your insights from. So why don't we jump right into it? Because as you and I both know, probably the past 6 to 12 months, there has been more change than I think we've seen in many, many years combined, and it's happening at rapid pace. So, from your perspective right now, what do you think the most important shift happening in marketing is? And more so, what many organizations might still be underestimating?
So I would say from my perspective, I think marketing is going from campaigns to systems, to going into like a systematic approach to the business. I would say the other thing that companies are underestimating is they think SEO is dead. That's like a very common phrase people say, SEO is dead, but it's not. If you think through the number one thing that's impacting marketing and business in general is AI, artificial intelligence, and large language models. So, for if you understand the way the models work, they actually are gathering data from places that already exist. They're not actually creating anything.
Right.
They're they're basically answering questions. So if you think about how a consumer behaves, they are asking the engine possibly instead of Google, or maybe if they are asking Google, they're getting basically a short list of responses. But if you understand where that data comes from, it's coming from all the sources that they use. And if you think the SEO is dead, then that's a big fallacy because it's the place that the large language models are looking for information. So it's going beyond just search now. It's also understanding how other areas of the business are impacting those results, the answer results. So, if you, a really interesting thing to do is to ask it about your brands, ask the large language models about your brands, and ask them exactly where they're getting the information from. And some of the things that come up, I'll give you for instance, is that I was like doing research, I was just out of curiosity on Cuisinart, and it's like some of the things that were stated were the fact that they had a long established like focus on PR, and those things are repeated on the internet, and that is actually gives you validity. So I think that where marketers need to focus is understanding how the models work and where the
Hmm.
data comes from. And if you are still working your SEO, that also helps you by ranking, it helps you be discovered in the short answers from Google or other places. So
Yeah.
I think the biggest fallacy is just upskilling teams and understanding, just understanding, like, and then understanding how, as a marketer, you need to understand all the elements that go into that because there's many, many different things in different channels, marketing channels that are important to that overall success.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power. Never that's never been more true, I think, than right now. And it's interesting you brought up the example around, the importance of PR, and how that influences the results that are appearing, in terms of what's being cited in the AI results. It is absolutely something that we are seeing. And as a long-term SEO agency, and personally doing this for a really long time, like, no, SEO isn't dead. I know a lot of people like to throw that around. I will tell you, there are still a lot of industries that are going to be, their audience is going to be much slower to adopt in terms of using an AI platform for their day-to-day research. Conversely, especially on the B2B side, SaaS, tech, there's going to be a lot of audiences where they are going to adopt more quickly and you will see a big drop off. So I like to think of it, forget about SEO if that's the concern that everyone has around that acronym because it's been around for a long time. It's just the philosophy of optimizing for organic visibility. And I think that's, that at the crux, that's what SEO is. But I think, if you want to throw away the acronym of SEO, I think we just have to remember it's still optimizing, for visibility. That's the important part.
Yeah.
So,
I just want to add one thing too. You also have to think about where the language model lives. It lives below. It lives below the internet. So it's like scraping and discovering like a search engine does, but it's just looking like many, many places and citing it. And you also need to look into where they're gathering their data from because a lot of it comes from maybe places you wouldn't think.
no, absolutely. And great point there. So, as AI has begun to reshape how people are discovering and evaluating brands, to your point, how do you think the role of marketing visibility is evolving now?
I think I think it's evolving in many ways. I would say the first thing is that the role of the head of marketing, it doesn't matter what your title is really needs to be a systems person. It needs to really thinking about the strategy of the business, what are your performance metrics, and then understanding what systems you need in place, that being technology, talent, skills, like how do you build a system so that you can understand how you're going to be able to impact that? Because with it being changing, like you have to be constantly on top of it and
Right.
understanding how that's all interconnected because it's a lot basically.
Uh, For sure. So that raises another, I think, great point slash question I'll throw to you. Mid-market marketing teams most often have to adapt very quickly, but unfortunately, doing so with very limited resources. So, where do you think leaders should be focusing their energy right now to stay competitive?
Yeah, so I would say clarity, right? The one thing that I've always seen in marketing is people tend to chase whatever the latest thing is, but and it's usually like the phrase of the year, the thing of the year, but this is a long-term impact. So I think that you have to understand one, how it's impacting your business and how you can focus on what is going to bring the most clarity to your teams and try to stay focused on that. So if for instance, like that you haven't built out the right kind of content, you haven't had good relationships with the media, or you have to understand like how you can impact the AI because that's basically the bottom line. And there's a lot of back end technology stuff with your website and other things that's also super important. But I would say like staying focused and understanding like what the trade-offs are. What are you trading off? Like, because if you're a mid-market team, you're also not necessarily like adding headcount like here, there, and everywhere,
Right.
but you have to still be able to drive the business. So you need to be very clear on what your strategy, goals, and impact is, and then how you can align teams. And then also understanding that like there's going to be a lot of marketers that are in roles that they need to be completely upskilled. And the way that you are doing XYZ or being very campaign or channel focused is not going to work in the future, because you have to figure out how that's all interconnected
Right.
in order to be successful.
Right. Yeah, it's really interesting in a lot of these conversations that I'm having, with fellow marketing leaders. This is coming up a lot as we're chatting, through different topic points relative to the org chart. And what does the future of, the marketing department really look like? Because, what you just said, that we've been fighting against silos in marketing for a very long time now, particularly, in digital marketing, but I think it applies to all of marketing, to break down those silos. And I think that couldn't be more important right now. And you really just highlighted that very well.
Yeah, I agree with you completely on that. I think the thing is like, I actually thought like over time, like marketing technology was going to get added to the org chart, but it really hasn't. So I think this is kind of the next wave of that, like understanding like who's in charge of AI for marketing. And it's not
Where does it live?
one thing, right? Because it impacts all of the areas. So a leader needs to take control of that, right? They're the ones that has to basically figure out how the org chart needs to be and then sell it. You have to also sell it upstream too.
Absolutely. So, since we're talking about marketing capabilities, skills, or disciplines, and I know this is a big ask, but if you look ahead to the next 12 months, which, could be an eternity right now in the world of digital, right? But if you look ahead to the next 12 months, what skill or capability do you think is going to become much more important than it is today?
Um, I think there's a few, but the number one thing I would say is somebody in that org chart that's going to be very skilled in understanding how the AIs are built. And there's not just one. So you need somebody who understands how they're functioning, because you can't, you might, in the beginning, you might be able to focus on the one or two big guys, but like there's so many that you need
Right.
somebody who's really has a complete understanding of how they function, where they're pulling their information from, and then how that can be used to make decisions about what the marketers do to run the business. So I think it's going to be like some form of an AI marketing leader. And I think that that's not a short term, because this is not one of those marketing things that's going to, be a flash in the pan.
For
It's
sure.
it's
Absolutely.
long-term impact. I would also say, depending on the corporation's philosophy, is going to have a huge impact on that's also something that a lot of you don't really hear people talking about. Like there's lots of companies who are like, you know, writing AI guidelines that would basically like lock people down. Or like I heard somebody mention to me today that, there's some philosophy around open AI versus Claude, and
Right.
some of open AI's business partnerships. But the thing is, as a marketer, you're going to go into a company and you're not going to be you're going to, if you're leading, you're going to have input, but you may not. And you may end up with the tools that the organization picks. And then
Good point.
you have to work within those parameters, because it's not something that, you can necessarily impact if you are coming in after those decisions have been made.
Yeah, the toolbox might be handed to you. You may not be able to put it together yourself.
It's like if you don't like open AI and that's what they picked, you better figure out how to live with it. And a lot of organizations are big Microsoft clients, because it's already totally embedded. So they may decide that that product is already in their suite and it's integrated and
Right.
easy peasy, no problem. So you have to be like open-minded about that.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, I think you just addressed the next question that I was going to ask you, in terms of for leaders trying to navigate through all this change right now, like what mindset or leadership principle matters the most. But I think you just said it, like, open-mindedness, right?
Yeah, you have to be open-minded because, and even this kind of goes back to like marketing technology, right? Like some marketing technology, the marketing team picks, some technology IT picks. It depends on the organization. But at the end of the day, like you can't be closed-minded as a marketer at this point. You can't be like, I'm going to close my eyes to AI. It doesn't exist. It's not going to impact because you'll be left on the side of the road. And, there's a lot of people who say things like, if you're not embracing it, someone who a colleague of yours, they are, and you're going to be basically no longer a modern day marketer. You're going to be, and not upskilled. And the only thing that's not great about that is if that person sits in a place in the organization, then they're not going to bring along the people underneath them, right? They're not going to
Right.
upskill those people, and then those people are also going to become stagnated too. So I think you have to just basically be open to it and understanding, though, the bottom line is it's not the be all end all. You still have to have a human, you know, looking at the output, understanding how it works. I mean, you can't just because you hear all this about AI slop because it goes back to like when, databases started existing in the world. It's like if you don't put good data in, you don't get good data out. So
Absolutely.
it's the same philosophy.
Yep. It seems like the more things change, the more things, to some extent, at least the basic principles and fundamentals for success stay the same, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Mary, thank you so much for sharing your insights and perspectives, which I know so many listening will appreciate, as we continue to navigate what has been, I think, a really exciting time in digital, but certainly a lot for all of us to take in.
Thank you so much, Danielle. It was a pleasure to speak with you today.
Absolutely. This has been Danielle Leitch from More Visibility, presenting Beyond the Click. Continue to follow along with this series where we will be talking with other marketing leaders across a variety of industries on all these same topics. Thank you.